Today we're continuing our series on everything Rosé with a conversation with Stephane Vedeau of Clos Bellane, focusing on one of my very favorite varieties. Grenache is often an underappreciated grape, in part because it is so widely planted. Up until recently, it was the most planted grape in the world. This led to so many mediocre examples, but when yields are properly managed and with older vines planted in the right spots, Grenache can produce some luxuriously rich and layered wines with flesh, spice, and often silky elegance. Until recently, it seems to have been much ignored by the world's wine professionals. It's one of those grapes that doesn't get a lot of respect, despite being responsible for some of the most celebrated reds in the world, Châteauneuf du Pape. As a grape and a blend, Grenache with Syrah and Mourvèdre is the classic trinity of the Southern Rhone's best red wines. Châteauneuf du Pape, Gigondas, Lirac, Tavel, and a host of increasingly exciting bottlings from Rasteau and Caron. Syrah adds structure, Mourvèdre adds game notes, but Grenache often plays the leading role in these blends. And I think it's so at home in the dry and drought-prone Southern Rhône. It's got the strong, sturdy, upright bush vine that's ideally suited to the hot, windy areas, with the big disadvantage only being with the potential for a poor fruit set, which can mean more flavor at the end of the day and texture for the wine. One of the finest Châteauneufs is Valréas, which is 100% Grenache. Lately, it's also been getting a lot of attention in the hills above Valréas. Grenache can be prone to too much of a good thing, but at altitude with the right terroir, it can produce gorgeously textured wine with boisterously juicy fruit. It especially shines on limestone. In top Cotes-Du-Rhone reds and rosés, Grenache is and can be magical, both in quality and price. It has to be dealt with delicately in harvesting in the cellar, and when handled deftly, can be very, very good. The relatively thin skin of Grenache has led many a savvy winemaker, most notably in Provence, to make a gorgeous rosé out of this misunderstood grape. I want to bring in Stephane Vedeau to help us unpack this grape a little bit more. He's simply one of the most thoughtful, insightful growers I know in regards to Grenache and balance, who may be making one of the finest rosés in France at any price point. It's a big statement, but we think about this every year when we taste this wine, because it really is at a level that's kind of extraordinary. Let me pull Stephane in and let him share some of his brilliance with us. Hold on one second. There we go. All right. See if the Wi-Fi gods are with us here. Welcome, Stephane.
Hello, David.
How are you?
I'm not too bad. What about you?
Good, good. I'm excited for this conversation because you truly are one of the most articulate growers that we work with, and both technically your feel for kind of the varietal and the place. And you know, I was thinking earlier, when I drive up to Clos Bellane, it sometimes literally feels like you're driving up into the clouds. You're going on those winding roads up the hill, and it's high up there after kind of all the lower lying vineyards around, and it's a special place. But I want to start with kind of your beginnings with Grenache, and kind of if you could, give us a little bit of your history with the grape and kind of your beginnings in making wine, and I think it was the Languedoc in the late '80s, if I'm correct.
Yes, that's true. The first time that I made a winemaking vinification, it was in 1989, and it was in Languedoc. and then Languedoc-Roussillon is a very wide region, and some pocket of lands were super interesting for the grapes. Most of the time, it was a lack of purity and freshness, but it was interesting because the soil, the geological situation in some areas of Languedoc can be crazy in the backland. And in terms of freshness, Limoux was super interesting. But in Limoux, there's not a ton of Grenache available, and the soil was sometimes a bit less complex, even if it was on the foothill of the Pyrenees. And then, obviously, when you start doing that, and when you do the winemaking on the Grenache, you step by step you understand that it's easy. You can make it on a lazy way almost, which is easy to get some fruit, some richness, some fatness, and but it can be very fast monolithic, and you can make mistakes with alcohol, richness, tannin, and so it becomes super important to be to work in the detail and the purity, and the more you spend time driving, and the more you realize that this is not for nothing, but the Rhône Valley is the place. So half my family was from the valley, the Rhône Valley, and naturally I moved in the direction of my mother to find the right area where I could work on super complex soil with the exactly adapted for this grape. And then I started buying some lands at the end of the 90s in the Rhône Valley until I found the Clos Bellane in 2009, 2010. That's it.
And so tell us a little bit about the situation of Clos Bellane, because it's very unique for the Southern Rhône. Can you situate it geographically and maybe even the geology of the spot?
Okay, so in terms of geography, just for you guys who are patient in wines in my region, is like a very old friend of mine who is now 65 and over. He said Valréas is between Cornas and Gigondas. You understand?
Yes.
So when you, I think it's pretty short, pretty smart, and it's a good sum up. So when you come from the north, you take the exit motorway, Montélimar south. You're not going to Bolaine, you're not going to Orange, you're not going to Avignon. It's really the exit to go to Valréas from the north is a motorway exit from the Septentrional. And then obviously, once you arrive in Valreas, and as you know by yourself, when you come this time from the south, you see a very different type of nature. The trees, you have lavender, you have more hill, you have more limestone. It's a more contracted geological situation with a lot of different veins, a lot of different exposure, and with a bigger spectrum of difference in altitude. So, and Valreas is, and I will talk about geology a little bit, but Valreas is it's a bizarre, it's almost weird, like many things in France maybe, but it's a pocket of land which belongs to the Vaucluse, to the region of the Southern Rhône appellation, but which is inside with no contact, but which is totally inside of the 26 of the Drôme. So the region of Valence and all the things. So for all these reasons, Valreas is super special. It's the most extreme northern border for the Southern Rhône. And and this place has more reason to be connected to the Septentrional than to be connected with the Southern Rhône.
So that's the Cornas reference.
Exactly. Especially when you talk about Syrah this time, so Syrah this time, of course. But you understand. And
which you have some Syrah too. But we're going to focus on Grenache, but you also have some very good Syrah.
Yeah. So 17 hectares of Syrah here. And in terms of geology, Valréas is it's the part of the air tertiaire area,
Mm-hmm.
and it's more precisely Miocene. And
just how long? Give us the history. How far back?
It's between 5 to 7 million years. Between 5 to 7 million years. So it's air tertiaire is a very wide area. So it's almost the end, not far away from Quaternaire, which is 2.5 million. And when you're in Valréas, it depends if you are on the top or if you are in the valley. But for my concern, where you have a lot of
what's
limestone,
the difference? What's the difference from the very top where you are at up to 410 meters? How far down does it go, and what's the kind of the general average for the vineyards? For the vineyards, I mean, because not all the vineyards are up where you are.
No. Well, I think that where the Clos Bellane is located is probably 2% of this mini appellation Valréas. And
the rest of it is quite a bit lower altitude. Is that
yes,
what I kind of wanted to underline?
It's lower and most of the time more in the south. So on the top of the hill where I'm located, it's Messinien. When you are in the valley, you are more Tortonien from the Miocene, and it's a combination of conglomerate, layers of stone and a bit of clay, and to make the link, you have a huge and very unusual proportion of active limestone. So
that's the powdery. Tell us what that means. What is the active limestone versus kind of, can you talk just a second about that? What active limestone means when you use that term?
Active limestone means that you necessarily have a very, very low pH in the soil. And the low pH in the soil, most of the time, and inside the limestone, you have a powder around stone, which release more this low pH aspect to the roots of the vine. So the transmission is easier, and for that reason, obviously, you have more acidic or more acidity from the structure, which brings more to the pH than the total acidity, and that's it. So, and with all the effect that we can talk about when you feel like it.
Well, and so you've got you've got a lot of angular stones, so you don't have the big rounded galets, but you've got there are a lot of rocks, but they're more kind of angular, different sizes.
Yeah, you have various, as I told you a few minutes ago, we have in this area a lot of variation of geological veins. And so with all this powder of active limestone and with the clay to make this, could I say, sauce almost, you have very different type of stone from different color and all broken, you have some metamorphic, you have some sedimentaire stone all together. They have been mixed by the deep pressure from the soil, and it's all together at the end. It's crazy. It's great because you can have, and this is what I used to do in my vineyard. Once I knew it, because it takes time to understand everything inside such a complex soil, that you can make a selection of rows according to the type of soil that you can find in a vineyard. And this is the reason why at the Clos Bellane we have so many different small cuvées in addition of the classic one.
That's the fun.
That's it. And of course, to answer totally to your question, on the opposite, down the valley, it's more sandy, more different type of clay, more a bit more red with more iron. You have some sandstone, much more, which are good, by the way. So super for tertiary aromas as well, but less acidic, lower pH.
Yeah.
And different type of stuff.
Which is kind of the hallmark of what you're doing. So I want to talk more about also the exposition and the altitude, but maybe we can do that in the context of the 2020 altitude rosé. So the 2020 vintage and that particular wine, I know you've told me it took you from the time you started Clos Bellane when you took over and bought it in 2010. How long did it kind of take you to identify where you were going to make your rosé? I know you made it from the beginning, but when do you feel like you had all the pieces of what you wanted to do together? Did it take a year, 2 years?
Yeah. So I have a vineyard more in the south, but we talk about Clos Bellane, which is really on the extreme northern border of the south. And what I'm saying is that before I didn't try to make a rosé. I did it when I was in Languedoc, but I didn't try to make rosé in the Rhône. I have a small problem with the rosé. It's a very convenient wine, but doesn't really excite me. So easily, I thought that if we could take advantage of this soil, which will be strong enough to answer to the fruit of the rosé when it is naturally made, and if we take advantage from the sun, from the eastern exposure, because it's all eastern exposure in one piece, the Clos Bellane, and if we consider the altitude for the ripeness, the maturity, because as you know, the sun is great for the red, but too much sun, and we are still in the south, is a potential enemy for super fresh white or aromatic in the freshness, not with inoculated yeast, but in terms of freshness with the rosé. So considering that altitude, considering that eastern exposure, considering that the proportion of limestone available, I thought that it could be enough in terms of elements you have at your disposal to create a very complex, more than a rosé, a wine, in fact. That was the beginning, and it took almost 5 years to finally to decide which was the best place for this rosé, which is limited production. I cannot move elsewhere to make it the same.
And please don't. We love it the way it is. So, and how much do you make on an average year? Quantity?
So it depends. It's between you're talking cases. So it's between 600 cases to 750 cases.
So yeah, so very limited production. And tell me what the east exposure, what does that do for the wine? What's the advantage of the east versus south versus west? Why is that important?
Because on the east, and when you are organic, organic means that no pesticide, as you know, everything like that. But that means that you can. That means it's on the morning, so you have the sun from the morning, which is cooler all the time in the south. On the afternoon, it's always, warmer, stronger. And when you're organic, it's even better because you can work more on your vineyard because you do not put treatments. So you can work more naturally. It's more pleasant, by the way. And you know that in the south, we love to have a nap on the afternoon. So it's better to
better for every
it's a
aspect.
joke, but you
No,
understand.
I've understood. I've understood. So this is the altitude, the Clos Bellane Rosé. It's the 2020 vintage. What was 2020 like as a vintage?
It's a very good vintage, and we can talk about different angles. The first one is time of cleanness. It's a very clean vintage. Yeah, that was no pressure at all. It's super clean, so nothing to affect the fruit and the expression of the fruit.
Perfect fruit, perfectly healthy fruit.
Exactly. Secondly, it could have been a not that good year if we didn't get the right quantity. Well, not enough, but we had some small rain at the right time to allow the fruit not to be locked and to finish his phenolic maturity. So that was good. And much before that, the flavor was good too. Well, depends on the places, but here for this rosé, that was okay. And it was very concentrated naturally because the yield was for the Clos Bellane the lowest for the last of the decade. The lowest yield.
Yeah, you said it's a bit. This was the smallest vintage that you've had in 10 years. Is that correct?
Exactly, correct. Yeah.
Wow, that's tough. Tell me about the thing for me that makes this wine so special is the balance that you get. There's this lift to it. The 20 maybe has a little more density to it than the 19, which was maybe a tiny bit more linear, but still there's this great balance. It's the alcohol is about what? What's the approximate alcohol?
It's 12.2 as far as I remember.
And
but it's
I mean,
so it's interesting because you give the link to explain the rest of it, because once we talk about the alcohol, if we talk about the grape, and it's 100% Grenache. So you can imagine that a Grenache at 12 degrees is not supposed to be super ripe, which is the case. It's not super ripe. It's the fruit is harvested when he is losing his vegetal acidity to maintain his positive acidity, and turning on the flavors when you bite the fruit in the vineyards, which are more like fresh wild strawberry and raspberry, touch of rosé, and therefore, in addition of this, in addition of the three previous elements, which are the altitude, the exposure, and the limestone, we had the limit positive age of maturity, 12 around, and at least enough to collect the grapes, to get the grapes, and to make a direct pressing, not a saignée, obviously, because tannin and anthocyane are not ripe enough, so direct pressing. And once you have your juice from there, you reach a pH which depends on the vintage, but it's between 3.10, 3.1 to 3.3, which is super low naturally, and it becomes to be a normal natural chemical process which make alive all the wild natural primary aromas available inside the grape, not from the yeast. And it's a very big difference, because when you bet on the technological way to get that flavors like you can find in 99% of the rosé, I would say, the life of it is super short. But when you get it from the fruit, from what which was available in it, and when you don't lose it for all the reason, technical reason this time, but naturally from the grapes, that stayed long inside the bottle, super long. The life of the fruit here is more than two or 3 years.
Wow, it's. I mean, that acidity is fairly unique for a rosé from certainly from that area. But that's a pretty that's a high, a low pH, correct?
Yeah, I mean, when you put everything on the table, you have this on this pure Grenache loyal from that location. You have the freshness and the structure from all the I was talking, and the pH is acting as something which protect naturally everything and which make the work in the cellar very slowly. So time to combine, time to protect, time to ripe, time to preserve is really super interesting. And once you arrive at that level of pH, which is playing inside the wine like a blade on your palate, and super refreshing, you can easily drink a glass of fresh wine from this cuvée when it's super warm outside. It's super refreshing. It's not like I don't want to have a wine from the south or whatever. No, it's really straight. And once you have that, you can take a decision. That I took not the first year. It was so 3.1, which is not far away from Champagne.
As far as really tight.
You can play on something crazy, not that I do not suggest to my friends, to my partners outside in my region, is to make the alcoholic fermentation in barrel.
Because there's so much there. It's so strong.
Yeah, so super low pH, super high acidity. Almost when you taste it, you do almost like this, on the beginning when it's
bracing.
Yeah, it's really makes something on your palate. It's super stimulating. It's very, so you can say, okay, I have that tension, I have that huge quantity of fruit available. Why should I not try to make the link between and to give more an additional touch of dimension without to kill the soul of the wine, but only 7 to 9 days of fermentation, and then I remove it from low-toast barrel with high quality grain, 1 millimeter per line in each stave. So only 7 to 9 days, and then I remove it, blending together, waiting for the winter, and that's it. So I agree. It's the previous year was a little bit more, even more acidic, even if still super acidic. But the structure, the dimension, it makes this vintage 2020 super wine approach.
It's I think as you said when you talked about it being bracing, I think there's no question that with so many rosés out there that are on the heavy side, that don't have that natural bracing freshness that your altitude has, I think it is really people take notice, and it really has become one of those insider, great rosés that people really search out, and this is another great vintage for this wine. Really exceptional, and it's beautifully balanced, beautifully beautifully put together, and it's very versatile with food. Is the other thing. I mean, it as you said, with that kind of that palate cleansing, bracing quality. Can you talk about that for a second? Maybe how you think about that?
For the food.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know what? Something more to talk about the food is that some of our partners, some of our customers who are Star Michelin restaurants, what they do, they order the allocation of Rosé, and they stop selling it, and they keep enough for the year after, and even more the year after, because naturally with the acidity and all this structure, you have, and this is the beauty of the Valréas and the hill where the Clos is located, is the minerality comes back.
Yeah,
very fast after a year and a half. So, and you know, this is super strange. I was not really expecting that much when I made it the first time, but it goes in the direction of a dry Riesling from Germany.
That's very. I had a 19. I didn't have anything older, unfortunately, but I did have a 19 altitude just about 2 weeks ago, and with some actually some I had it with some Gray Soul. It was extraordinary, really extraordinary. I had have the 20 obviously now, and it's a little bit, but you're totally right. The 19 was even more of a laser beam, and it was very salty, very mineral. I didn't think about it in terms of a Riesling, but I did take notice at how you called it a blade. That wine was just like a Japanese knife. It was pretty amazing.
So interesting what you say, because that was the part of the answer of your previous question which you asked for, which was about the food, and I was thinking, if we talk about the food, I have to talk about how the wine is going, in which direction in the future, and that's it, because you have two directions to take in terms of food. First one is it's always about cooking. Please, if you intend to take a bottle around with friends around a swimming pool with house music, don't take it, please. Don't take it, please. So, but if it is a privileged moment, and if you want to cook a white meat, or if you want to cook a good salmon, you're gonna have a lot of fun. And if you play with fruit or with a kind of reduction of acidic base inside the sauce, that will work perfectly. And the second direction is Chinese food or Asian food. The more you are on its power on the fruit, or the more you wait until you have a strong angle, vertical demonstration of the minerality, and the better it works with Asian food.
Sounds pretty good. Now I'm thinking about dinner already here. I know it's past it for you, but I'm gonna think about this evening. So.
You know, one very last thing is
sure.
You can there is something that some of friends do from time to time. They open a bottle, and it's not a kind of rosé which is dead when you drink 2 glasses and you let the bottle open. No, you can drink a glass every day over the week.
Well, the 2019 that I told you about, Gray Soul, and then the second usage was with sushi. So then both were perfect. And the second night was with sushi. So, well, that it really is one of our favorites. And I think that high altitude, that all that limestone, that eastern exposure, and then you're really kind of vinification, it's brilliant. So thank you.
Yeah, which is good is when you have another palate, you have a kind of a mini earthquake between the acidity, a mini point of bitterness from the lees worked before, and the fruit which is there, and the juice which is the concentration of the low yield and the touch of the alcoholic fermentation in the barrel. That you do not see that, but it's only the link between these two extreme parts. And it's on the palate. It creates something.
Well, for me, I talk about it as it's like if you're shifting gears in a car, because to me, in the middle of the palate of that rosé, it goes into an extra gear and like woo, and it just takes off. And
okay,
so that's my description. That's what I've written about it, and it happens in your reds too, which so. As a bonus today, because I had this whole idea in my mind about Grenache, and you have such beautiful Grenache, I wanted to talk about your 2018 Côtes-Du-Rhône Villages reds. The first one is just the Côtes-Du-Rhône Villages Clos Bellane. And I wanted to talk about the 18 vintage a little bit, and this situation for this wine, which there's 50% Grenache and there is Syrah. And then we're going to taste the Pureté in a second. But let's start first with just the Côtes-Du-Rhône Villages, and that'll give you a chance to talk about your whole, a little bit Syrah and Grenache.
Yeah, so that's it. It's really the heart of where the estate is, which is the meeting in a fantastic terroir of the two grapes. As I told you, just for the joke, because you were asking to explain where it was exactly located, Valréas. So between Cornas and Gigondas, and it's half and half Grenache and half Syrah. The soil is fantastic. It's the Syrah is located, as probably you can imagine, in the back of. Not all the Syrah, but the majority of the Syrah of the estate is located on the back of the cellar. And the cellar at Clos Bellane, it's half buried inside a hill. So you can come with the grapes and the tractor, and you drive. You arrive from the most highest elevation of the estate with the Syrah, and naturally you drive on the roof, because it's half buried, but at some stage you land on the roof, and you put by gravity the grapes in each tank, because on the roof you have one hole per tank with a metal cover to obviously to make sure that nothing else can get in, and then you decide according to the maturity and to the ripeness if you distem totally or not. And then the magic arrive very fast. It goes down, no sulfite, no yeast, very low start, 3 days, 4 days before it starts. You have a lot of inhibition in the fermentation naturally because of the soil, and then it starts super smoothly. The Grenache is harvested not at the same moment, and the two tanks, Grenache and Syrah, when we start, it starts, but we take our time. We have several batches arriving, not on the same day. So it's like when you cook, you add step by step, and at the end, the piece of vineyards which are going together with this cuvée are made to offer the juiciness on the attack of the flesh of the Grenache, without to be caricatural at all, but very fast. By the mid palate till the finish, you have the Syrah with its density, with its color, with its spices, with the truffle side. But we have truffle trees at the Clos.
Yeah, you have a lot of beehives too, I believe, too.
Yeah.
A lot of, yeah. So 50-50. The vines are 30, 40 years old on average, something in that range?
It's over 30 years old until 50. And it's depends on the vintage, but it's at the Clos Bellane, because of this slow speed, it's there's not a lot of action in the cellar, but a lot of time because of the slow speed. So it's by contact mainly, solid liquid, naturally, nothing violent, but a lot of time, between 6 to 8 weeks maceration. So a month and a half of maceration before to go to the pressoir.
And it's partially destemmed? You do it by feel? How do you do that?
But it's color, and you can do that easily when you have the pedicure. Well, it's French term, but it's the color of the vegetal component of the fruit, and then you can bite, of course, first of all the skin, and then the pips, and then the total fruit, including a little bit of the stem, and you see if it is or is the bitterness versus the extract. You see the potasse, the saltiness, because you have a lot in it, and I don't want to lose acidity, so it's a kind of choice.
Dance between.
Yeah, and I don't want to be too much cluster.
You don't want the taste to be whole cluster.
Exactly, because at some stage you do not see from where it comes from when you do that too much, from my point of view. But it can help.
I know. I agree. And the élevage is done. Can you, because it's a combination.
Yeah, it's a combination. Élevage, it moves to the concrete tank. So we are in the south, even if we are in the north of the south, inside the cellar, which is half buried.
This is the bottle.
And the concrete tank of very high quality with no painting inside. It's pure, high quality, thin clay and concrete. And few demi-muits, super old, super clean for the complexity.
There's an amazing texture to it, and you definitely, as you say, I love, you've got the Syrah, does kick in kind of in the middle, but you've got this beautiful juiciness to the wine too. And there is a
you have the glycerol. You have the glycerol, so you have the juiciness, and if you pay attention to the back label, it's 14.5.
Which I knew in my brain that remembered that it was something in there, but I mean, taste-wise, it isn't even remotely tastes like it's that much alcohol, and it's super balanced. There's a lift to it, and it's remarkable. It's such a balanced wine.
You have
talk about 18 as a vintage.
Yeah. So you have the phenolic maturity of ripeness from the south, but you have a pH of a white wine, and then you have long maceration but smooth, and then you have no filtration. So it's
long.
It's very long. It's an orchestra, which can be super interesting as long as you can maintain the link between everything, which is the case. And 1918 is
2018.
Yes, sorry, 2018.
That's all right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and 2018 is a very good vintage. Of course, it's. I would not say that, but that was an easy vintage. The vineyards, the vine was in perfect condition. A little bit of water when it was right, more or less, the moment. No pressure, no cryptogamic pressure. That was good, and a good structure in the skin, Pips not super ripe, but good enough to bring energy at the end of the alcoholic fermentation, when it's the moment when you get something from the pips. Huh? It's at the beginning, at the end, not at the beginning. And so it's great because you put mark on all the good things to get a super good vintage. And then you have his profile, which is not like 2010, obviously, but straight enough strength and energy, not super wide, but complex and with a lot of potential for tertiary aromas. So very good vintage.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a wine that will certainly has a life ahead of it. That's great. So now I want to talk about your rarity, your Chateau Reyes, the Pureté, the 100% Grenache that you do. This wine is really kind of, I think, a complete outlier. And I just think there's an elegance to it. There's a complexity and a density. And I want to, it's old vines. So if you could dive into this, because it really is one of my favorites.
So Pureté 400, so Pureté 400 is 400, of course, it's for the altitude. It's a pure Grenache. It's a cuvée that I do not make every year. It's 18, but you have not 19. Probably not 20. That's the third time that I make this cuvée.
In 18.
Yeah,
2018. Yeah,
is the first. It's the third time number 3 that I make this cuvée. It's a tribute to Burgundy somewhere. It's a pure Grenache where you have an incredible tension which deserve the purity of the fruit. And it's super elegant, super. At the same time, it's a kind of ballerine finesse way of style of wine, and at this moment, in this style, it's really wild berries, and then you have the terroir. So you can trap a lot of people on the tasting. Nobody will put that wine in a Rhône valley.
No, sure. Absolutely, yeah.
And it's a spectacular cuvée for connoisseur. You probably have more availability in your cellar at Skurnik that I have now in my cellar. And if you're not selling well, I'd be happy to buy back.
I don't think there's any chance of that, but I love your connection to Burgundy because, I had a dear friend who I used to talk a lot about Grenache with, and I feel there are moments when Grenache can, as you said, you can put it in tastings, and this wine, because of where it comes from, the altitude, the terroir, and the vinification and the old vines, there is a resemblance to Pinot Noir in some way. It's different. It's not the exact same thing, obviously, but Grenache can be very noble. And I think this is a great example of when it really comes to a level. I mean, I'm just curious because you taste all over the world, and I know you are a great taster and love wine and love other parts of France as far as wine in the world, as far as wine's concerned. Do you know of other Grenache that has this profile?
No, so far no. But at Clos Bellane, if we talk about it, you have a turn on the Syrah lost somewhere on the estate. And I made a cuvée that you don't know yet because of the situation. you know, with COVID and other things, that I call sangue d'alba. And once you taste it, you will see. So it's not only France, but it's
something to look forward to.
So that is something. But with the Échalas white that maybe you know, which is a pure Roussanne botrytis, but dry, a lot of tension, but botrytis, no sugar. It's a kind of place that in the Clos and it's good for me because I love scratching my head and my heart. But
you're curious.
You have a lot of fun if you have the passion, of course.
Yeah, well, and that's why I mean, it's to go up to your winery. It is up a hill. It is kind of out there, and it's such a treat to do that. So this wine is one of my very favorites, and anybody who doesn't know it, direct message me if you're interested, and we'll see if we can come up with some, because it really is special and it really is a unique wine. I want to talk about one other wine which I don't have with me today, and we kind of wanted to stay on this hilltop, but you have one other wine that's not in Valréas, in the Clos Bellane, in your winery, that's a very unique Châteauneuf du Pape, and the Eurogien. Can you talk a little bit about that Châteauneuf du Pape and why it is so unique for Châteauneuf du Pape?
Yeah, it's Châteauneuf du Pape. I do winemaking since the last 90s, and I bought a few pieces of vineyards step by step. And in 2010, I bought Clos Bellane, and because of the terroir again. And I just want to say something about it, because I will come back to something else after that, is that when you come from the south and when you want absolutely to find balance, you don't want to play an easy game to put richness on grapes which are already rich, and you say, it's my region, so that's the way to make it. But if you want to make your life a bit more complicated, but a bit more exciting too, you want to have more component to challenge the richness. And that's the reason why it pushed me to go to the north of the south, because you can have the maturity at 14.5, at 15, whatever, but you have a lot of freshness available to challenge the richness. It's like when you cook, you can decide to make something the same to go together, or something not opposite, but which completes and makes something harmonious at the end. For this piece of vineyard that I bought in 2011, I didn't want to have something with the Limestone, with the Galets Roulés that I have already, that I have on the east and on the north, and now in the south, but on mini estate. And I wanted to have something more metal, more mineral, more blood, not typical. And you know, it's not easy to buy lands. It's expensive, and it's not easy to buy lands in Château. But I found an area that people from Château du Pape doesn't really like, because it's so poor, it's so difficult to work, because you have some layers of stone, white stone. When you go there by July, August, you have almost too much light on your eyes. You need to put your sunglasses because the reflection is not like the classic ochre yellow or whatever. So, and you need some time to break it, to make it in a smaller piece. And it is again, and that was the reason why I think it was interesting to buy it for the Clos Bellane. It's probably the lowest pH available in Châteauneuf du Pape. It's white stone. It's not salty stone. It's white stone with a low pH, super acidic. And again, I thought that on this Urgonia, which has 80% of Grenache and 20% of molded, that I harvest most of the time between mid-October to end of October, early November sometime. Becomes rare now, but October. You can get a richness of the Grenache, which is close by an Amarone at 15.5, and you have a pH which is below 350. It's silly. It's incredible. So to make the link between these two, if you don't want your alcohol to attack with the acidity, the tannin on extraction, you need to have a low speed, but again, low pH means low speed with natural yeast, and a super low yield. So you have a dark juice with strong aromas of red and black berries, with a freshness on the back finish. And instead of having the end of the tasting of the Chateau like this, it goes like this. So, and you know that. And at the end, it deserves the fruit because you have now the experience by yourself, David. But every time you open it, even if it is old vintage, the fruit is still there.
No, there's this amazing, vibrancy to that Chateau Neuf that is completely unique. And people taste it, and they're kind of don't know where they are. But there's a minerality and an amazing kind of vibrancy that is completely unique, and it's long. It's very long. There's those extra gears in that wine too, and that's why I wanted to. Even though we don't unfortunately have it here, it's very small production. It's a completely, again, an outlier for the appellation. But as you said, it fits perfectly in the Clos Bellane family. It's the same concept in terms of balance and the elegance and that kind of that I want to use a term in French, but kind of that it changes your mind when you taste it as to where you think you are. Not Chateauneuf. Completely. I love to show it as a blind wine because people really have trouble finding exactly where it is. So
yeah, you see that it's a rich. You can identify the profile of the fruit available sometime in a Chateauneuf, and sometimes you can find it in a young year of a Bono sometime at a time before he died. But then you have the minerality from the Urgonia, which is speaking, which is playing like a lift of everything. And that's that was interesting for that reason. I thought it was the best thing to fit with the style of Clos Bellane.
Well, Stephane, I can't wait to come back. I was looking at the pictures that day we were there with multiple rainbows, and it was raining. It was a beautiful day, but the wind was blowing like crazy. We were trying to do some videos, but I hope to be back soon. I want to see this new cuvee that you put together. Plus, sometime soon we need to talk about the whites because you make some. Your touch and your kind of the unique quality of your white lineup is easily the equal to your red, your beautiful red lineup. So
yeah, and I made a mini cuvee of that I call obsidienne on the vein of magmatic. Well, anyway,
all kinds of new toys next time.
Exactly, to have fun. Thank you, David.
I wish I could be there and taste with you, but it was a treat to do this tasting this way, and I did.
What time is it? You can come.
Well, we're getting close. Things are opening up a little bit here finally. Let's knock on wood that maybe we can get back to the world can come back to normal sometime soon. And thank you, Stephane, for your time and your passion. It's contagious.
And thank you for your effort, for your energy, and for your smile presenting my wine. Thank you. It's very kind of you and very professional.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. It's easy to do. Trust me. Take care,
Thank
Stephane.
Same
We'll see
to
you
you.
soon.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.